2024 is a pretty big year in terms of milestones for my own personal lifting. First, I just crossed over 10 years of lifting exclusively at home. And second, if my math is correct, I have been lifting for the sake of lifting weights for almost 20 years. So I started just out of high school when I was about 18 years old. I turned 38 this year, which means I am right there in that 20-year window. In 20 years, I've managed to go from about 6 foot buck 80 to 6 foot 260. So I put on some mass for everybody out there. I've also managed to hit a 515 pound raw squat, a 550 wrapped squat, a 350-ish pound bench, and a 630 pound deadlift. Now, my goals in terms of powerlifting, I actually laid out in 2019, right here. So my goal was to hit a elite total before I turned 40. So now I picked those because I picked it. Doesn't necessarily mean anything in the grand scheme of powerlifting. You don't win some medal or some reward or end up on some wall anywhere or if you have an elite total. But I wanted to pick something. And in doing research through various avenues and looking at different stuff, an elite total kind of clicked with me. The elite total comes out to, it's about a 680 pound wrapped squat, 425 bench, and a 630 deadlift for right around a 1735 pound total. That made sense. Put it down on paper, broke it down from 2019 to 2026. How was I going to approach my training? What were the numbers I needed to hit in those years to achieve those targets if I wasn't on track to add some interventions? Which brings me to my new intervention, which is connecting with my man, Chad Wesley Smith of Juggernaut Training, hopping on JuggernautAI and seeing where that can take me. So that's our video for today. Let's hop in as I got a special chance to talk to Chad while setting up my JuggernautAI programming to see how that goes.
Hey everybody, what's up? Chad Wesley Smith here, JuggernautAI, joined by Joe Gray, the Garage Gym competition. And for going, I think this will be the third year in a row, the JuggernautAI is the presenting sponsor for the GGC. And the first time in that Joe himself is going to be using the app to get ready for the competition, the spring GGC here in the middle of May. So today I'm going to be walking Joe through the setup of his program and kind of explaining to all of you the significance of some of these different things that the app asks about and how that impacts your program design and help Joe get the most out of his program, and hopefully you all can have some good takeaways from it to get the most out of yours. And of course you can use code GGC at juggernautai.app to save on the program and get yourself as ready as you can be to lift as heavy as you can.
And male, I'm a dude, so that works.
Yeah, so that's the first thing that makes a big impact on the program, that females, all other things being equal, are going to be able to tolerate, they're going to need and tolerate higher volumes.
Yeah. That's always been interesting. Do you know, I've seen that before. Is there a reason for that?
The main part of it is going to be because of lack of testosterone. They're not getting near the same hormonal response from the training. Then the other part is kind of interrelated to some of these other things, that generally shorter, generally lighter, less muscular. So the bar is not moving as far. There's not as much muscular damage happening in the training, and so they're able to do a bit more.
That makes sense. 5'2", 120 pound female who squats 300 pounds isn't crushing it as hard as a 6 foot 260 600 pound squat or whatever kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, that specific example, that 120 girl squatting 300 might actually be a better powerlifter,
but yeah. But I'm sure from a there's probably a certain limit to the neurological effects, right? Of no matter how big you get, 600 pounds is more than 300 pounds, right? Kind of thing.
For sure, the absolute
Yeah.
strength stuff, and we'll talk more about that when it's asking you your maxes. But this next screen that you're on here, looking at,
It's got my age and stuff.
yeah, birthday, body weight, height. So of course, age is going to be a factor in how much training you're able to recover from, and all of these questions are dealing with two very important numbers to the Juggernaut AI app: MEV, minimum effective volume, and MRV, maximum recoverable volume, which is basically how much training do you need to progress and how much training are you likely to be able to recover from. And the relationship between those two numbers is what helps create a lot of the decision process. So birthday, we're getting your age. As you get older, well, you can't recover from as much. And then the heavier and taller an athlete is, the more likely they are to not be able to recover from as much volume, because moving the bar further per rep, and then the if you're heavier and hopefully more muscular in that, you're going to have more muscle to damage, and that's going
Sure.
to be take a little bit longer to recover from as well.
So the next one is nutrition. So I track my macros and plan my meals around training. Yes, I do. And then diet goals. I plan on losing weight. I plan on maintaining. I plan on gaining. I'm gonna go with maintaining because I think that's probably about where I'm at right now.
Yeah, so the main effect that this stuff's going to have is it's looking at if you're gaining weight or losing weight. We're going to bias the training towards a bit more hypertrophy, because of course, if you're gaining weight, you want to be gaining muscle, and hypertrophy training is going to support that. But also, if you're trying to lose weight, hypertrophy training is going to help you retain as much muscle as possible through that, and it's also going to kind of raise your your caloric expenditure and allow you to eat a little bit more while still being in a deficit, because you're doing the higher volume training. So that's the main thing that those questions are influencing.
Yeah. More reps, more work in total means more calories burned, kind of deal.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
certainly if you're trying to gain weight, recovery is going to be a bit better. You're going to be able to handle a little bit higher volume, and then if you're cutting, a little bit less volume, and then every day the app asks you as well about your diet in the previous 24 hours. If you're at maintenance calories, surplus, or deficit, and it's going to make little micro adjustments along with that.
What's it gonna do if I? So I mean, I've been tracking my macros and stuff for a decade plus or whatever. What's the difference between if I say no? Is it just a little more cautious?
Yeah, so if you're not tracking, we kind of just go move everything down a little bit, because it's probably just, well, this person's answers might not be quite as
Sure.
reliable.
How long have you been lifting? Less than 4 years, 4 to 8, 8 to 12, 12 plus. So, how would you answer this? Are you looking at, like, I started lifting right out of high school, so I was 18, I'll be 38 this year. But that first few years of lifting was like, I mean, I was reading bodybuilding.com articles and doing haphazard machine stuff. Like, I didn't squat or deadlift until 3 or 4 years in, right? I didn't hit a 500-pound deadlift until it was probably 10 years into my lifting.
Yeah, so I'd say total continuous serious training.
Okay.
Whether that's bodybuilding training, whether that's training for sport performance. Like when I started powerlifting, and I did my first meet in 2010. I'd only been powerlifting for 4 months before that meet, but I'd been lifting weights for 10 years at
Sure.
that point, very seriously. So I would have been answering in that 8 to 12 year range. So for you, you were training hard. Granted, it wasn't powerlifting training, but serious training. So using the full scope of your experience is fine there. If
Okay.
someone's answering it and they lifted for 10 years, but then they hadn't done much for the last 3 years, type of thing, and then they're coming back to it, I'd probably just kind of move one category down. So they'd be
Sure.
more 4 to 8 years instead of the 8 to 12 years, even though they have 8 to 12 years of experience. And this is going to be another thing that early early in the lifting career, like the less than 4 years, when you're getting the beginner gains, you don't have to do a ton of training. So MEV is going to be lower, and MRV is also going to be lower because you just don't have a great capacity, like a work capacity built up.
Sure.
And then as you get strong, or as you train longer and longer, MEV is going to come up. You've been training for a long time, like you have to train hard to improve. But then you're also getting to a point, and this intertwines with age and strength and everything as well, where hopefully you're getting so strong at that point that now your MRV is coming down because the training you're doing is so demanding. And as those numbers get closer, that's where we have to get a little bit more clever, and these like undulating and alternating periodization styles will come in.
What kind of training do you prefer? So right now, what I've been doing, I typically lift Monday through Friday. On Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, I do two a days. Um, but I don't do your I don't want to say typical, but maybe it's more typical powerlifting style of like I haven't benched 3 times in a week in quite a while kind of thing. So
Yeah.
how would you classify that?
Yeah, I'd probably call you medium volume there, low volume or medium volume. Sort of a generic way to think about this would be if someone is doing like the base original 5-3-1, they would
Yep.
be very low volume. They
Okay.
do basically 3 sets of each squat, bench, deadlift, and
Yep.
overhead press per week, and then some accessories. Um, the Lillibridge method would be a similar, if people are even familiar with what that is here in 2024. It's like you max out and then leave. That would also be in the very low volume side of things, where the
Yeah.
volume side of things is you're doing like a Sheco program or a DUP type of
Sure.
program, and you're squatting 3-4 times a week, benching 4 or 5 times a week, with a lot more modern powerlifter training tends to look like. And then with questions like this, and kind of as a theme throughout the app, like when in doubt, err on the low side, err on the cautious,
Sure.
the
Yep.
conservative side, because it's always going to be easier to add as we go rather than start too high and have to take away. So
Yeah.
for you, I'd go either low volume or medium volume.
So normally for me, like you said, I mean, my volume is probably pretty low in general. I do a little bit higher intensity on my accessories a lot of times. My As long as I ramp up, so like if I start off in week one and I go balls to the wall, then I crush myself. But if I start off with a week one and it's kind of like limp in, I do maybe one set instead of two. And then week two is 2 sets instead of three, kind of thing. As long as I'm methodical about that, my recovery is good. And I have no problems between like Monday affecting Tuesday. So, like I mentioned, Tuesday I do back work, and then Wednesday I deadlift. I don't seem to have any negative, carryover from a full back workout on a Tuesday impacting my deadlift, and I deadlift conventional on Wednesday. What do you think there?
Yeah, same kind of thing. Yeah, I'd probably go with the medium, if maybe the one option slower, to be conservative about it.
Sure.
Again, this is another question. There's a lot of subjectivity in it.
Yeah.
Like this is a kind of a question of we're trying to gauge a lifter's genetics,
Sure.
and since we're not pulling the app's not taking a muscle biopsy of anyone or
Yeah.
anything like that. We're limited to questions to be able to find it out. And outside of like particularly hard for people who do most of their training on their own, because you're not getting exposed to how a training partner feels relative to
Yeah,
how you
that's
feel with
true.
the same kind of training. It can be
Yep.
a bit trickier. So yeah, I'd go medium or one option slower than that.
Okay. Yeah. How much sleep do you get? Less than 5 hours, between 5 and 7, more than 7. Luckily, my daughter sleeps through the night most of the time now. So when she was younger, that definitely wasn't the case. For the most part, unless if it's a weird, wacky day, I would say we're in bed right around 10 and we're up somewhere 6:30 ish. So we're right around 8 hours. So go with more than seven.
Yep.
That's fair. Cool.
Yeah,
That's an easy
that
one.
one's simple.
Okay.
Yeah,
What would you do if you're say you're a shift worker and 3 days a week you get 4 hours and 4 days a week you get 8 hours or something?
I'd go with the between 5 and 7 hours, and this is one that it asks on a daily basis as well, how much they slept
Oh, okay.
that previous night. Um, yeah, these next couple questions are going to be about sleep and stress, like away from training stress, and
Yep.
those along with diet are the three biggest factors contributing to recovery. Besides,
Yep.
of course, training in with a recoverable volume.
Yep.
You could sleep for 10 hours, but if you train for the other 14, you're probably not going to recover very well. So
Yep. Yep. All right. So, what is your life stress like? So when it says activity, so like, are we talking? So like we talked earlier, I coach my daughter's soccer and basketball, so that's 2 to 3 times a week. I'm running around chasing around a bunch of kids. I walk my dog 2 or 3 times a day. I'm doing random odd stuff around the house here and there, but it's not like I'm working a 8 hour, 10 hour construction job, right?
yeah, so we're looking at this from two aspects. The job side of things, that certainly a manual labor job is going to have a lot of impact on training that a desk job is not going to. And then, so that's on the job side of things. And then the activity lifestyle side of things is going to be things like coaching or other physical hobbies that aren't lifting. So this is
Yep.
basically like stress training or stress that's just not the program you're going to get in the app. So like if someone does jujitsu or they play pickup basketball, or they're going to a CrossFit gym twice a week type of thing, then we'd want to be putting that on the high activity side of things. For you, I'd either go moderate because you're a desk job, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm right here most of the time. So
yeah, so I think low stress job, high activity would be a good
okay.
option.
Cool. It's time to select your program. Choose your poison. Powerlifting or power building?
This is a personal decision. I think the powerlifting program is the way to go, certainly for GGC preparation. Power building, you ask 100 people what they want out of power building or what it is, and you might get 100 different answers.
Yep.
So, powerlifting is, from our side of things, creating the app. I'm a powerlifting coach. I'm not a power building
Yeah.
coach, but people certainly like to do it.
Yep.
But it's when there's a much more defined goal of lift the heaviest weight you can for one rep
Yep.
this given day, a much more, I think, strategically designed program can be created for that.
Okay. Yeah, I said over the years that I never really liked the term power building, but I don't have a better term for it.
Yeah.
And it's because you see guys like I've seen Ed Cohn talk about it, where he's like, I mean, power building for a lot of people is just the right program, right?
Yeah.
You've just got a well-built strength program paired with strategically added in accessories to build muscle in the right places to support your strength endeavors.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And if someone was, using Juggernaut AI app to build a lot of muscle and general strength, and they weren't concerned about competing in powerlifting,
yeah,
they could still do the powerlifting program and just do hypertrophy and strength, and then skip
yeah,
the peak and reset, and hypertrophy and strength and reset, and do great,
yeah,
with that. So basically what the power building program does in the app, and it has an option within that you can bias your training towards more powerlifting training and less bodybuilding, or more bodybuilding and less powerlifting,
mm,
is basically just taking the total amount of work that you would do, let's say, you know, for the squat. And now the more you bias it towards powerlifting, more of those, let's say, 10 sets of the squat are going to be actual squat variations. And, so you might have in the week, 8 sets of squats and 2 sets each
Sure.
of, quad accessories, hamstring accessories, glute accessories. And then as you shift the focus more towards the bodybuilding side of things, you're going to get less actual squatting and, might go down to 4 sets of squats and up to 4 or 5 sets of the accessory exercises. So that's what the percentage is doing in there. But yeah, especially for GGC, I'd go with powerlifting.
Okay. Okay. Which days would you like to work out? Pick between 3 to 6 days of training. I do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I don't know that I've ever thought that that was I say best. It just tends to work with my kind of mindset of I lift during the week and I don't on the weekends kind of thing. I
Mhm.
think if you had a 4 day work week and 3 day weekend, I would probably lift 4 days a week. But that psychologically, something about taking a day off when I'm supposed to work kind of thing over the years just kind of threw me for it took me out of the rhythm kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And that, people ask, oh, what's the best frequency or whatever to use? And so much of it's just going to be determined by your own schedule and, availability. About 80% of the people using the app, maybe 75% of the people using the app train 4 or 5 days a week.
yep,
The rest of them are split into 3 and 6 days a week.
sure.
Um, if someone is in doubt, and should they do 4 or 5, I'd probably start with 4. If you find the sessions to be a little bit too long, or you feel like you could handle more work throughout the week, then go ahead and bump up to 5. But it's that's probably not going to be the decision that stops, makes someone a world champion lifter or stops them from
Yeah.
becoming that.
Yeah. Yeah. So is it taking, so say I pick 3 days versus six. Is
Mhm.
it going to take the same amount of volume, sets, reps, etc., and cram it into 3 versus stretch it out to 6? I'm assuming there's a little bit of a adaptation when you do more days,
Yeah,
but
there is. So there's kind of like a cap to the maximum of work that you're going to be able to handle
yep.
each day. So it understands that in dealing with the per session volume and the per week volume, and then frequency of squat, bench, and deadlift exercises. You're choosing your total training frequency 5 days a week, but the app is going to decide, what, based upon all these other answers. Well, how many days a week should you do a squat variation, a bench variation, a deadlift variation? So your 5 day a week program and my 5 day a week program and Marissa's 5 day a week program can look really
Yep.
different because of that.
That makes sense. Okay. Testing your strength. The last day of the spring GDC will be the 19th, and I'll probably have my competition on the 18th. So what have let's say I put the 18th and then decide a couple of weeks now, a month, two, whatever. Oops, I actually want it to be the 19th, or I want it to be the 12th or something.
Yeah, so the 18th to 19th, is basically the same.
Sure.
So I wouldn't bother changing anything there. If you're going to move it up like a week, just when you get to the end of a deload week, there's a little button that says modify program, and you can change your meet date in that and change it to
Perfect.
12th, and it'll adjust accordingly.
Cool. It's not gonna blow up the whole thing.
Now,
Cool. What periodization styles would you like? You want to pick your own periodization styles.
so this one, is more like for people who have been using the app before and they've
Right.
tried some of this different stuff, and they have a preference there for you and the first time through. I would just let it choose for you.
Yep. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, for me, it'd be one of those. The reason why I'm here is because I want to see what it has in store for me instead
Yeah,
of override it and come up with my own game plan. So,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And so the considerations in there, it's basically linear, alternating, or undulating, which I have longer videos talking about this a lot.
sure.
But as I mentioned, if the MEV, minimum effective volume, is going up for someone who's more experienced, stronger, uh, you know, bigger and more muscular, and their MRV, because of those same factors, is coming down. As those numbers get closer to each other, it makes it hard to be like, all right, this week I'm going to do 4 sets, and next week 5 sets, and the week after 6 sets,
Sure.
because they're going to overreach a little bit too soon. So what we will end up doing with that is maybe they're going to go 5, 4, 6, and the undulating or quality of that is going to allow the middle week, the low week, the light week, to still be effective training, but actually provide some fatigue management from the previous week.
Gotcha.
And alternating is basically having one week with heavier squat and bench and lighter deadlift training, and then the next week those alternate, and the next week back to the same as week one. So you're like squat and bench hard this week, hard deadlift the next, squat and bench hard the next week, hard deadlift the next, and then a deload. It was just another way to kind of fit in enough hard work, but without
Sure.
overreaching before we want to.
So just had a meet. Start with a bridge block to give your body a break before hitting a hard weight. Did you want to start with a bridge block? Yes? No?
So bridge block is my favorite part of the training. Um, it's a good thing bridging from meet training, meet prep cycle to meet prep cycle, but also I think just as an introduction to the training, it improves work capacity. It's really effective training that's easier in some ways. And people perceive that it's this easy training. It's not easy training. It's just different training.
Sure.
It's heavy light structure to it. So there are some days that do feel very easy, but I would start with this for you being 16 weeks out with either a 4 or 6 week bridge block.
Okay. All right. How strong are you? If you aren't sure, you can just estimate. So your maxes. So should I put in? Because I mean, my should I put my all-time bests? Should I put the last one rep max test I did was in October, November. I think one of my lifts I did the best, but the other two I didn't.
Yeah,
What
I
do you
put
think I do?
the most recent ones in.
Okay.
Yeah, and this another thing where you want to use recent numbers, not all time bests. Not, well, this one time I did a squat that maybe it was 3 inches high, and the spotter might have touched the bar on this bench a little bit, but
Back in high school, I
yeah,
did. Yeah. There, what are your lifting styles? Squat style, definitely high bar. Bench style. So I do um, middle finger on the ring. What would you call that?
um, I'd probably call that wide grip. I mean, the widest you can go is index finger on the ring.
Yep.
So
Okay. Deadlift style, conventional, because sumo is cheating. We all know that one, right? So, next. Okay, where do you struggle the most with your lifts? Squat, rounding over in the hole, above parallel. Probably I probably above parallel. I normally get out of the hole pretty well.
yeah, I'd say
It's
that's probably the most common area. We're also going to add a I'm not sure option,
okay.
but yeah, above parallel will be a good one. And with that above parallel, it's going to look at your body weight and your squat and deadlift as like a ratio to be able to assess, uh, are you missing in that spot because your back is relatively weak compared to your legs, or vice versa, or is it balanced?
Yeah.
Uh, and it will change exercise selection based on that. But all these weak point questions coming up here, that's going to deal with exercise selection.
Okay. That makes sense. Bench weakness. Everything. Let's just do probably off the chest. I think. I mean, for the most, like I don't think I've ever really missed a bench at lockout. Um, Mid range would probably also be accurate, and but I think for the most part for me it's like if it doesn't move off the chest, it just doesn't move. So
Yeah.
deadlift, I've almost never missed a deadlift. Actually, I don't think I've ever missed a deadlift at lockout. If it gets up, it gets up. Um, Mid range, are we talking like about knee height?
Yeah, like right below to right above the knee.
Okay, I'll probably do off the floor. Most of the time, it's one of those. If it doesn't, same thing. If it doesn't budge, it doesn't budge. As soon as I break the floor and get that bar moving, if I miss and it breaks the ground, I'm missing within that first like inch or two. Yeah, I'm not missing higher up.
Yeah,
So
go off the floor then. And
okay,
this is another one, assuming you know, people watching this, you're not sitting on a Zoom call with me setting your program up. You click there's a little video up there at the top that says your weak points, and it'll give some more information about each of these.
yeah. And I'm sure. So say I get them wrong, right? I don't know what that is, or I thought I'm weak on something, but I'm not. Is the program going to figure out, or is there another point where it asks me again, like, hey, you did your 1RM test, where'd you miss, or something, or
Yeah, yeah. At the end of blocks, it's gonna look to up. Sorry, at the end of like the whole program when you test new one rep maxes, it'll update that. But you can also at the end of any week, click the modify program button and change your weak points as well.
okay, perfect. Okay. What should my brain be thinking as I transition from my own stuff and what I've written to Juggernaut, so that way I don't go, oh, holy crap, this is so much different. I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I get frustrated, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the program is like extreme or has that sort of such a novel structure that it's going to be something that
Okay.
you look at and are like, I would have never thought that I'm going to be doing this.
Yeah.
Especially with the way that we answered the questions, being a bigger, pretty strong guy and answering more conservatively on the historical workload, historical recovery side of things, you're going to be on the lower moderate volume. But big thing is, people always say trust the process or whatever. You know, there's ample resources inside of the app in the FAQ section that if you have a question about this, like why is it like this, you can kind of just type that into the FAQ and it'll pull up a video for you to explain like this is why it's alternating periodization and this is how that works and this is how your frequency is decided upon and all these different things.
So obviously, I have a home gym. Mine is pretty well stocked. Got, full functional trainer, high row, low row, uh, more cable attachments than any human being should have, a whole bunch of specialty bars and different fun stuff. But I mean, I'm still limited in some areas. Uh, how's the app gonna like? It's gonna recommend me to do certain things if I
Yeah,
don't
so
have that thing, right?
Yeah, so it's not very equipment intensive at
Okay.
all. I did most of my powerlifting training in a corner of a CrossFit gym with a Texas Power Bar, a rogue rack, and some plates and me.
Okay.
Um, so I've never been very equipment intensive in my own training or how I write things. I think a lot of the different bars and stuff are kind of silly.
They're
Uh,
they're they're fun.
yeah,
That's what I tend to tell people is they can be fun to use, but are they necessary? I don't think so.
yeah.
Uh,
Because when you're looking at creating variation, well, if I move the bar up on my back, down on my
yeah.
back, I widen my stance, I narrow my stance, I go down slower, stop halfway,
Yep.
I stop all the way down. I just created a lot of variation all with one bar.
Yep.
And I got in trouble kind of at a Sorinex seminar once because I gave that same little spiel and I was like, I'm in the business of teaching you how to get strong. I said, if I was trying to sell you equipment, of course I'd tell you, you need to get, five different bars and reverse hyper and
Yeah.
everything. But yeah, so it's not very equipment intensive, and it's real easy to swap exercises, and it'll give you a list of the best things to swap to from there. The accessory side of things, it's just going to prescribe in powerlifting a body part, and it'll give you a drop down list So it'll say back, and you hit the button and it'll give you all these different back training options, and just
Okay.
choose one that you've got the equipment for and that you like,
Cool.
because a low row versus a high row versus a cable row versus a hammer strength does not a champion powerlifter make. Like, just do some. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
it's pretty straightforward from that standpoint. Well, cool, Joe. I'm looking forward to
Cool.
it. And
Yeah.
yeah, reminder to people: code GGC at JuggernautAI.app. You can only use the coupon codes there on the website, and you'll save 10% for the life of your subscription. So sign up, soon, and your training will kind of line up along with yours, and they can you guys all follow along together.
Yeah. All kinds of cool stuff. I like it. All right, everyone. Huge shout out to my man Chad Wesley Smith for taking his time to help me through that process and answer some questions that I had in my head that I think a lot of you will have as well. We had asked in the fall garage gym competition some questions to our participants: if you pay for online programming or not, and if you don't, what keeps you or what might convince you to try it in the future. The top three answers came from people saying that number one, a discount code. As Chad mentioned a couple of times, code GGC will save you on your monthly Juggernaut AI program training. So check that out. Number two is a trial period. So Juggernaut AI has a 2 week free trial period. That should be enough for you to get set up, check it out, see what's going on, kind of get a gist and feel as to whether you think it makes sense or not. And number three was a review from someone they trust. So hopefully, if you're watching this video right now, that means this guy right here is somebody that you trust, and I will have a full written video, etc. review on Juggernaut AI after the spring GGC. My pipeline says it's looking at something like probably about June or July. So that will give me time to prep for the GGC, compete, deload, and start heading into probably the fall, see what that transition looks like. So I get kind of the full gist of what this is, how it works, the whole deal, and I can share with all of you. So, as always, being transparent, Chad mentioned Juggernaut AI is the presenting sponsor for the Garage Gym competition. I will have free access to Juggernaut AI because of who I am, what I do, the whole deal. But hopefully, you have seen my previous reviews. I am nothing if not transparent to a fault. So, hopefully, by the end of this, you will know my honest, truthful feedback. Whether this is the greatest thing that's ever existed, whether it is, I don't know why anybody uses it, or somewhere in between. So, keep an eye out for that. If you have any questions for myself as we go, always hit me up. If you have any questions for Chad, you can drop them below. I'll make sure Chad connects with you, answers some questions, that kind of thing. Chad is very active in their Facebook group, the Juggernaut AI one, so you get a lot of opportunities to pick him and Marissa's brain on all kinds of good stuff. So make sure you take advantage of that if you're using Juggernaut AI. If you've used Juggernaut AI before, let me know in the comments below. What do you think? Pros, cons, whatever it might be, tips and tricks, so then that way I can make sure I get the most out of this. If you have not used it before, you're interested, make sure you check out the resources in the description. I have a whole bunch of links, all kinds of good stuff to help you guys get some more details. As a home gym user, I know one of the biggest struggles with a lot of online programs is that they are going to call for things like leg press and hack squat and whatever it might be, and you just might not have that. The good news is with Juggernaut AI, that's not the case, which is one of the reasons why I like having them on board as our presenting sponsor for the GGC. The goal is to help you be a better at-home lifter, and with Juggernaut on board, we are certainly making that happen. With that, if you liked the video, make sure you give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more of what I'm talking about, lifting, at-home stuff, product reviews, whatever it might be, hit that subscribe button. And make sure you mark your calendars for the spring Garage Gym competition. That way you can lift right alongside myself and other cool people out there in the home gym community. There are tons of prizes. It's free entry, super simple to do. Make it happen. And of course, we will have a second event this year in the fall. So if for some reason you think you can't make the spring one, we got you coming in later this year. So that's it, everybody. I'll be back with more home gym awesomeness for all of you real soon. Peace.